Are you blessed to be here this morning? Do you believe that God has something particular for you this morning? Because I believe He's got something for me, and I believe He has something for each of us. Can anybody hear that? What is that noise? That is the sound of an alarm clock. For many of you, that is the sound that you hear over and over, day by day. Some of you at 5 o'clock in the morning, some at 5:30 or 6, or some of you later, or some of you earlier. But a lot of you in here set your life, set your morning up by an alarm clock. Anybody in here do that? For many of you, when you hear that sound, though, when you hear the alarm go off at whatever time that is, for many of you, it's a reminder of many things. Some of you, it's a reminder of how absolutely tired and exhausted you are. You see, when you hear the alarm clock, you hear, no more sleep. I'm tired and I'm exhausted. Some of you hear the alarm clock, and it's a reminder of how hurt and how burned out you are just in life. Some of you hear the alarm clock, and the first thing that goes through your head is all the roles, all the responsibilities, all the numerous commitments that you have to make today, that day, and on the coming days. And the alarm clock can be a very scary and a very daunting sound in your life, as it is in my life. For many of you, when you hear the alarm clock, you don't just pop out of bed, but you become very frustrated. The alarm clock may not be the best sound you hear all day long. Are you busy? Are you too busy? Some of you are busy, extremely busy, with kids, with grandkids, and with family members. You see, those kids have you running around. Those kids have you on your toes. Those kids have you doing things that you never thought in your life you would ever imagine doing. Some of you are busy because you have jobs, and jobs that demand large portions of your life. Jobs that not only demand 40, 50, 60 hours a week, but jobs that demand your energy, everything you got. Jobs that are physically taxing. Some of you are busy because your jobs require all the mental strength you could possibly muster up for that day. Some of you are busy because your jobs require every bit of emotion you could ever do because you have to deal with difficult people during the day. Some of you are busy because your jobs are all you have in life, and so you pour everything you have into that career. Some of you students in here are busy because you go to class all day long at school. But not only do you go to class, but then you have homework, which I can't believe, but you would have homework after class, and you would spend hours reading and hours studying and hours preparing for tests. Or some of you need to be doing homework where you're preparing and studying and reading. Some of you students have projects over and over, week after week. It's this project and that project. And if you don't have projects, there's a good chance as a student you are busy in life because you have numerous extracurricular activities, whether it's preparing to be in UIL activities or it's sports or clubs or all the things that you're involved in. You see, whether you're 10 years old or you're 93 years old, busyness is a trap of life. It's a difficulty in life. It's an obstacle in life that everybody has. But today, I believe the Lord has a word for us today. Because the question is, are you too busy? But more importantly, are you too busy to take a breath. Today, we are going to kind of answer that question. In a world that's crazy, in a world with crazy schedules, crazy commitments, crazy demands on your time and on my time and on your energies and on my energies, in a crazy world, how can you learn how to take a breath? You see, the students right now are in track season. And as I was preparing this message today, I began to think that life, the race of life, is a lot like a track meet. You see, when you go to a track meet, if any of you have ever been to one, you know that it's event after event, and sometimes there's simultaneous events happening over and over at the same time. But your life, I imagine, is somewhat like a track meet, where you go from running one race to changing clothes and putting different shoes on and running a different race, and then maybe putting a different hat on and running a different race, or throwing a field event, or being a part of something else, or doing this or doing that. And you see a track meet happens over a 4 to 6 hour period. But it seems like those 4 to 6 hours are so fast because everything is just a whirlwind, and you are asked to be a part of everything. How can you, in a crazy world with crazy demands and difficult schedules, take a breath? You see, when you're at the track meet, you're always breathing because you can't run unless you're breathing. But sometimes you forget that in between those events, in between the things that you're doing and how busy you are, just to lift your body up and to lift your head up and to honestly take a breath. Today, if you'll start turning there, we are going to be in Psalm chapter 3. And if you were here last week, we started kind of this series in Psalms where we'll be doing a couple of these, and we did Psalm 26 and what it looked like to pray with real emotions before a real God who really cares. But today, we're going to be in Psalm chapter 3. And as we get a chance to look at Psalm chapter 3, there's something very unique there. This is the first psalm where we get a literary element introduced. You see, the psalmist would often write, and then he would take a break in the middle of his poetry, in the middle of his psalm, and he would sometimes use a word. The word is called Selah. And this is the first time in Psalm chapter 3. It's not in 1, it's not in 2, so this is the first time in the Psalter that we see this literary element portrayed. And in Psalm chapter 3, this word Selah is used 3 times. And as many of you know, in this psalm, it's very important. It's there for a reason. As you would read the verses and you see that little mark off to the side that says Selah, it's a time for you to literally take a breath. That's the literal translation for that word. It's a time for you to look back at what you just read, not go forward, not move on, but just pause and take a breath and to meditate on what you just saw. And so I want to allow those 3 Selahs in Psalm chapter 3 to act as markers for us today. And I want those 3 markers to be 3 ways, not just 3 reasons, but 3 practical ways that you this week can maybe take a breath. So as you turn to Psalm chapter 3, and we start in verse 1, the first point is this: take a breath in your life, your busy life. Would you take a breath by praying to God? Look at Psalm chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. O Lord, how many are my foes? Many people are rising up against me. Many people are saying of my soul, there is absolutely no salvation for anybody who belongs to God. You see, this is the opening line of an opening prayer where David, the psalmist, comes before the Lord and he understands the power of prayer. You see, that opening phrase of, "O Lord," is a way of David to come before God and to say, you know what? Life is difficult. Life is hard. Life is something that I don't understand right now, but he comes before and he says, you know what? I understand the importance of prayer. And I imagine if you are anything like me, when life becomes difficult, schedules become busy, events start adding up, the calendar starts becoming fuller and fuller, the very first thing you turn to is prayer, right? The absolute first thing that you begin to think about in your life is, well, maybe I should take this to the Lord. No, if you're anything like me, your prayer life is sometimes the first thing to fall apart. It's the first thing that we kind of set to the side. You know, we just run a little bit faster. We put on some better shoes. We put on some better clothes, and we say, you know what, I can take care of this. I can fix this. I can do this on my own. I can complete the schedule. I can work those many hours. I can do all the events. I can take care of all the people. I can fulfill all the roles and the responsibilities. I don't need anything. I just need to work a little bit harder, right? But you see, when we come to the idea that we need to take a breath by praying to the Lord, it allows us to slow down. It allows us to concentrate our focus and our energy and our dependence, not our independence, but our dependence upon the Father. How does your prayer life look? How does the discipline of prayer evident in your life? A couple of things that I think about when I think about this verse and I think about taking a breath by praying to God, as I think about the finiteness of my life. And here's what I mean. Everybody in here likes pie, and if you don't like pie, you've probably eaten some pie in your life. And here's the truth about your life and my life. My life is a lot like pie. There's only so much to go around. And when you start slicing it out and you start divvying that pie up, you very quickly recognize that you can't do everything. You can't even probably do half or 2/3 of the stuff in your life. But somehow we believe we'll just keep adding more, we'll keep doing more, and sometimes the slice that we call prayer in our life becomes a very small slice of pie, or for some of you, and some of you like myself, the slice of prayer kind of gets thrown out. We re-divvy that up to something else. How much time do you spend in prayer? How much time in your day, in your week, in your busy schedule, do you find time to take a breath, to focus all your energy, to focus all your skills and your ideas, to take all your plans and to set them before the Father and say, you know what? Before I do anything today, I want to take a breath in my busy schedule, and I want to pray to the Lord. You see, another thing that I think about when I think about prayer is I think about my relationship with my wife. You see, if I want to be in a good relationship with my wife, then she and I have to talk. We may talk by email. We may talk through text messaging. We may talk physically on the phone. We may go out on a date and talk over dinner. We may just spend time before we go to sleep talking in bed. But here's the truth, and you know it just as I do. If you want to be in a good relationship with your husband or your wife, you have got to talk. Why would you ever expect anything different between you and the Lord? If you want to be in a good relationship, in a relationship that's thriving between you and the Lord, you got to take the time to go on a date with God. You got to set some time apart in your week, in your day, and you got to say, listen, God, I love you. I don't want to just love you as I'm passing by and as I'm doing things in life, but God, I want to love you more than I love anything else in life. So we need to talk. I need to talk with you, and just like my wife, I need to listen. And you see, the power of prayer is a power that says, I'm going to come dependent before you, Lord, and I'm going to talk. I'm going to petition you. I'm going to put my pleas before you, but I'm also going to spend time, and I'm going to listen. I'm going to allow you to speak words of truth and words of life and encouragement into my life. That's what you want in your marriages. And I believe that's what you want with your relationship with God. So will you pray this week? Here's 3 things I challenge you to pray for. First, pray for your family. You are a part of your family. Pray for yourself. Pray for your wife. Pray for your husband. Pray for your kids. Pray for your grandkids. The Lord wants to hear about you and your family. Pray for them. It's important. Secondly, pray for your church. The Lord is in the process of moving things and stirring things up in this church. This church wants to be missionally minded. This church wants to see Jesus come, see the gospel and the good news move forward. But we can't do it unless we pray. Pray for your deacons. Pray for your pastor and his wife. Pray for your music minister. Pray for the people who serve so eloquently in this church. Pray how you might become involved in this church. Pray about the things that the Lord cares about. He cares about your family, and He cares about this church and the church. And third and foremost, pray for your country, because we, as Americans, love our country. And believe it or not, the Lord cares about this country. But here's the deal. Many of you may want to pray for your country over praying for your family and praying for your church. And I would ask you to be very cautious about that. Pray for yourself, pray for your family, pray for your church, but don't forget to pray for your country. And see if the Lord may speak words into your life. Will you take a breath and pray this week? Secondly, let's look at point number 2. Secondly, you and I have to take a breath by remembering God. Not only are we called to pray to God, but we're also called to remember God. Look at verses 3 and 4. But you, O Lord, you are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to you, Lord, and you answered me from your holy hill. There's something very specific you need to understand about this psalm. It may be first in the Psalter, it may be number 3 in the book of Psalms, but this psalm is actually written close to the end of David's life. This psalm is written in connection with 2 Samuel chapter 15, when David himself is running from Absalom. You see, what's unique about that is that a lot of time has passed in David's life. But he's still under the fire, he's still under the gun. But think about what has already happened in David's life. He's the leader of armies. He defeated a Philistine giant. He's a man who God used in many ways. He went from being a shepherd boy to now being king. You see, look at all the stuff that David has experienced in his life, all the things that the Lord has done in his life. And yet it can become very easy when circumstances are tough, when life is busy, to forget what the Lord has done in your life. But David does a really good job of remembering, you know what? I can pray to God and I can remember the goodness of God, because what He's done in the past of my life is a model of what the Lord wants to do in the future. Remembering what the Lord has done is a very important thing to do. But sometimes, most of the time, in order to remember what the Lord has done, you have got to take a breath. It's very hard when you're running 100 miles an hour, trying to be successful, trying to plan the next, organize the next event, get the kids to this, do that, do this, to look back and to say, you know what? How has the Lord been a shield in my life? How has the Lord protected me in the past? That takes time to process. How has the Lord answered me when I had to cry out to Him in the past? What were some ways in your life up to this point that you desperately cried out to the Lord and He answered you? You see, the Lord gives us a great gift. Some of you may be losing that gift, but He gives us the great gift of memory. And when you have the gift of memory, He gives it to you so that you can remember good things. You can remember the things that He has done in your life. Don't forget. Take a breath. Take the opportunity to remember how He's been a shield in your life, how He has provided for you in your life, because it's a good model for what the Lord wants to do in the future. So this is a great opportunity as you're preparing for spring and the summer for you to think about the power of a family vacation. Yes, a family vacation. You want to know one of the coolest things about a family vacation? It's a time and it's an opportunity for you to get away as an independent family, whether it may just be to a campground or it may be to a different state or somewhere different. But it's a way for you to get away. The power of family vacations are absolutely amazing. They don't have to be tons of money and big and flashy, but they're a way for you to get away from life, to get away from some of the distractions here in life. But it's a way for you as parents and as grandparents to talk about what the Lord has done recently in the past, what the Lord has done in the last year, how the Lord has taken you from Dallas, Texas, to a little bitty town of Matador, Texas, and has called you to do ministry. You see, when you talk about what the Lord's done in the past, it rejuvenates, it makes you excited, it makes you passionate about what the Lord may want to do with you in the future. But it can become very quick for you to forget what the Lord has done in your life and in the life of your family. And sometimes it's just the value of getting away as a family and talking about those things. Making sure your kids never forget that there were some months recently where the bills were hard to pay. But the Lord provided. The Lord gave good things to us as a family. Whatever it is the Lord has done in your life, remember those things. Don't allow yourself to easily forget. That's why He puts the word there. Take a breath by remembering God. And this is point number 3. Point number 3 is take a breath by restoring your confidence in the Lord. Psalm chapter 3, starting in verse 5. I lay down and I slept. When was the last time you really slept? I lay down and I slept. I woke again. Why? Because the Lord sustains me. I will not be afraid of thousands of people who have set themselves against me and all around me. Arise, O Lord, save me, O God, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek, and you break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be on your people. There are two really cool aspects of this. How do you restore your confidence in the Lord? You are easily remembering that the fact that our God sustains you. That means that He continues to hold you up. He is here. He is prevalent. He has not left you, but He sustains you. When I began to think about the Lord sustaining me, I began to think about the fact that I like to put cheap substitutes in my life to allow those to sustain me. Here's some of the cheap substitutes that our culture likes to say. These are things that can sustain you. These are things that can get you through the difficult times. Maybe things like drugs or alcohol or addictions. If you had to give those up in life, what would your life look like? It's very easy to allow those things to sustain us. Maybe that's not your cup of tea. Maybe it's coffee, medicine, energy drinks. You see, none of those things are a really bad deal, but if you allow your life to be sustained by coffee and medicine or energy drinks, you may have a cheap substitute in your life. Maybe none of those are for you. Maybe yours is power, bank accounts, mental aptitude, skills, education, family, friends. You see, if you surround yourself with enough good people who like you, who think you are the best thing, then that makes you feel good. That brings sustainability into your life. But those things will fall by the wayside. Everything in life will fall away. Your kids will not always like you. Your spouse will not always be your absolute best friend. There are things in life that we allow to try to sustain us that are cheap substitutes. Finish this line. I am who I am because. I am who I am because of my family, or because of my friends, or because I drink enough coffee, or because I have enough skills, or because medicine takes care of me and allows me to live the life I want to live, or because of the alcohol or the drug or the addiction that I have in my life. I am who I am, and if it's anything else other than Christ, then we are allowing cheap substitutes to fulfill our lives. Because the truth is, the Lord is the only thing that can sustain you. You may get along for a long time with the cheap substitute. You may make it a long ways in life based upon your athletic ability or your mental aptitudes or your physical capabilities to do everything in life. But at some point, you allow those cheap substitutes to try to sustain you, you will fall. But here's the deal. When you restore your confidence in the Lord, when you take a breath and say, listen, God, there is nothing else in life that can sustain me like you, there is great freedom found in that. And you see, the end of Psalm chapter 3 ends with this phrase, salvation, to be rescued, to be delivered, belongs solely to the Lord. First and foremost, eternal salvation is from God. If you place your faith in Jesus Christ and you say the only atonement, the only way I can find forgiveness from my sin in life is to put my faith in Jesus Christ, then God owns eternal salvation. He gives you and I the gift of salvation eternally in Jesus Christ, the greatest gift you could ever receive. But secondly, listen, day-to-day success, day-to-day salvation, day-to-day rescuing and deliverance, that also belongs to the Lord. You put your faith in Jesus Christ for eternal salvation. Why don't you put your faith in your daily life in Jesus Christ to bring salvation on a day-to-day basis? You see, David struggled with that. He struggled with the fact that my confidence can become anything else other than Jesus. But if I will take a break, if I will take a breath, and I will allow the Lord to restore my confidence in Him, then I will understand that He sustains me and that salvation eternally and daily is found in only Jesus Christ. So as our worship leader comes back up here, the application is simple. Will you today, will you take a breath? Will you pray? Will you remember God? And will you allow your confidence in God to be restored? Because He sustains and He brings salvation. Will you stand?